Hello everyone. In today's session we will cover mainly data entities. Many of my viewers, they were asking for this, and so I thought that it might be a good chance to have a video on this one. Basically, data entities revolves around OData, and OData is a mechanism used in D365 in order to have a synchronous data integration, and it also revolves around DIA-XF, which is a data import export framework. So sometimes it is called data management framework, DMF. In D365 it is called DMF. So it also revolves around this one, and mostly in D365 the experience is integrated. That is, it shows in on each of the form it will show you an Office icon, Office 365 icon, where you can open the the grid available on the form in an Excel. So here it is it is not available here open in Excel experience, only it is showing export to Excel option, through which you cannot put the data and synchronize with the tables behind. So one more thing is data entities, they provide a form in which there is a staging area also, so that it can be cleansed and then it can be imported. So since it is a DMF based, so that is one of the option. And if you have worked on DMF, it also revolves around data entities which are basically denormalized form of the tables. There are lots of table in D365, maybe in thousands, and so when you go and see the entities in DMF, so those are denormalized forms, so that you can import the data based upon the fields in a simpler way. And once it is imported, so it will split those data into various tables involved behind it. So I will just show you from any existing form. For example, if you go to all vendors form or all vendors page normally, so here you can see open in Excel is showing you the data entities. And these are like vendors V2 version 2 and V3 version 3, and this was the earlier on first version without any version naming here, only it's showing vendors, but it is obsolete. And then export to Excel group is also shown, which is not used to import back the data. So we will just create a similar experience, which is called open in Excel, for our resort management system. So this normally you will see on all the pages, like vendor pages, customer or purchase order form, all purchase order page, or maybe all sales order page. On if you go to account receivable, all sales order or all customers, you will everywhere see this Excel add-ins, and this is coming from the previous versions as well. So now they have given this link over here on all of the pages mostly. So we'll just start by going to our resort management module on which we were working, and we'll be just creating a similar experience here, which is now it is not available. So we'll just start by creating the data entity for our resort table. So to start with this, so what we need to do is, first we need to identify in our project what will be the table. So you if you are working from my previous videos, you have seen there is a master table called resort table on which we were working, and this table is nothing but if you go to this form, so the table behind this form is a resort table form. So we have multiple records for the resorts, having description and resort group and resort type cost wise and location wise. So if you open it, so the form will open, like this, and it can contain more information like registry number or acquisition date also. So this is basically the table here in Visual Studio in the project. Resort ID, name, group ID, type cost wise, type location wise, registry num, and acquisition date is available here. So we'll just create a data entity for this, so that it will be available in order to maintain the resort data through Office add-ins, and it will be publicly available through OData entity. And so what we need to do is we need to check our table properties here, and we need to ensure that it is having a natural key. We can configure an alternate key, or simply choose a unique index in our table primary index property. So here it is given resort IDX. So this will ensure our uniqueness in the table. So we have already selected it, and now what we need to do is we need to add a new item in our project. So just right click the project node here, go to the add, and then new item, and in Dynamics 365 items we can expand it and go to data model. In the data model we can see data entity. So what we need to do is give it a name, and the name should be similar like table name. So what we can do is, in your cases you can put your own prefixes, but here I am using PKR underscore as a prefix, so I will use this one. And then resort table is the table name, and then entity. So in this way the prefix plus the table name resort table, and then a postfix as entity, because this will be used as a data entity. So this will use here, and I will click add button. So there will be a wizard which will open. So you can see a wizard has opened. This is called data entity wizard. So data entity name which we have given, PKR resort table entity, has been taken from the text box, and here we need to choose the primary data source, which in our case will be PKR resort table. So this will be our primary data source, and then entity category. That need to be, if you remember, we have discussed it in data dictionary videos, that every table will have a certain category. Same is the case in entity as well, that entity category need to be one of these. So since it is not a transactional table, but rather it is a master data table, so we'll choose master here. So in other tables, definitely if it is transactional table like resort booking orders, we can choose the transaction, and if there is a reference data, then definitely reference type will be chosen. So in this case we will choose master. So after this then what we can do is, so now in this wizard we can see that we have put the name with the prefix of PKR underscore, but here in public entity name and public collection name, under the group of enable public API, it has removed the prefix. So we will just input again the prefix in order to avoid the conflicts. So since we need to make it a similar case or consistent with our naming conventions, so we'll just re-put this prefix. And this staging table is definitely in, if you see in DMF, data management framework, so there is a certain table called staging table. Whenever you import data, so first it goes to the staging table, and then it can be committed to the the real tables. So this will definitely give you a staging area where you can cleanse your data or observe the data. If it is correct, then you can commit it. So then if you can observe here, there are security privileges. It has automatically, wizard has automatically given you, and this one is for view only access, and then there is a maintain access as well, where you can edit the data. So these will automatically be created. So now we'll move to the next part or next page of the wizard. So after a few seconds, the next page will open, and here you can see there are various things basically, and data source is already selected, which we have selected in previous page, and in options select all option is selected, and then there is option convert labels to the field names. We don't want to do this because field names are already these are technical names. We need to keep it same like the original table which we have selected as a data source here. So we'll not be using it. And then there is an option to add secondary data sources which can be related data source or child data source, and then we can also add virtual fields. In our case, we don't need to do this, and automatically it has already selected a resort ID, name, group ID, and type cost wise, location wise, registry number, acquisition date, and remaining are built-in fields which we don't need to select here, not necessary. And then it has already picked it up, whichever field is mandatory. So resort ID and group ID were mandatory, so it has already picked it up. So I think mostly things are already captured here. If we want to change anything, that can be possible, and change is definitely by only selecting it or unselecting it or adding a new data source or same kind of things you can manipulate here. So we do not want to check anything else, and we can make the additional fields also mandatory, and also we can uncheck mandatory field here, but it will get errors definitely once you will be committing or saving that data, because those mandatory field will not have the value. So now what we can do is we'll just press finish button, and it will create a data entity for us. And you can see here security privileges have been created, data entity has been created. So these things already have been created for us. We'll just double click it and we'll see in the data source, the data source which we have picked it up is already selected here without any ranges, without any secondary data sources or derived one. And in the fields, all the fields which we have checked are already selected, and in auto report nothing is there in these field groups. Keys, resort ID is the key here, and relation nothing, delete action nothing. Okay, that's it. So the entity has been created. Apart from this, there will be if you go to the tables folder, here you can see the resort table, staging table has been added for us, and this contains these fields. Execution ID is selected, definition group, and similar fields like the original table, like resort ID, name, group ID, type cost wise, location wise, registry num, acquisition date. These are from the main table, and the remaining are for, I think, the flag statuses, which are transfer status is selected, execution ID, definition group for the DMF. So, and then if you can see, the indexes are all generated as well, definition group, execution ID, and the resort ID, which is the primary key in our main table. that has been already created as a staging table. Now what we can do is at this stage we can check the project properties and tick mark our synchronized database on the build option, so that the changes have been committed to our data dictionary or on the database. We'll just start the build operation so that the changes have been committed on the database layer. So after building the project, we can navigate to our resort page, and here we can open from Office, and we can see that Open in Excel is available along with the resorts data entity. So now what we can do is just click on this one and download. So now it has been downloaded, and we can now open it. Okay, and enable the editing, and also it might need to be logged in as well with your user account. Okay, and now you can see on the right hand side a data connector or Office add-in, Dynamics Office add-in control is being shown, or add-on is being shown in within the Excel with various options. And on the left hand side there are certain fields which have been defaultly selected, and like resort ID and resort group, which were mandatory fields, so they are selected here. And if you notice that not all the fields are shown here, for that you need to go to the design here. There are various options. From the design you can see the data source available, which is resort, which is the table, and you can select this pencil icon to edit it in order to add more fields. So you can just select, for example, acquisition date, name, registry number, cost type, and location wise types. And once all the fields are selected, you can just update it. All the columns have been inserted and you are done, and then you can again refresh it and click yes. All the data is now shown belonging to that table. So what you can do is we can now insert a new record from this Excel add-in in order to see how this is working. So for that you can just start with a new row with the legal entity or company name, and then you can give a next number of resort, for example 98, and Southern can be resort group. Here you can notice that no lookups are being shown here. That we'll take care in the next by writing some logic. And here the acquisition date control is shown, so I will just give a acquisition date here, and similarly I will give a registry number, any registry number, and I will select a luxury with a hill station. These are enums, and it is currently not showing the lookup, which we'll do in our logic part. So I will just put the description, hill station luxury 02. This will be the description, and this will be the fourth record. And if you can see at the back end, you can see here that only 3 rows are there, and even if you refresh it, there is no rows which have been added. Still we are working on this row. So what we can do is, after inserting this record, and this need to be correctly validated, otherwise it might not be published. So then I will just select this publish option. It's showing that publish all data source changes. So I will just click publish, and you can see the message at the bottom, publish successful, workbook updated. So we can just check it by going at the back end, and you can refresh and you can see the new record has been inserted here. And you can just click it and you will see the registry number, acquisition date, and resort group and type information here. And you can see here the lookup is available, but in our Excel it was not available. Similarly for resort group, This is a user entered data. In another table, you can go by going through view details, and here we have already created this form and table behind it. So in this way, we have just completed the data entity by going through very straightforward method, and now we'll do few changes as well. And now, apart from the two fields which were mandatory, resort ID and group ID, we need to also show by default the other fields as well. For that, what we need to do is just select the fields which we need to also show by default, and then drag and drop them to the auto report field group. For this, just select the names of the field, for example, registry number, name, acquisition date, and resort ID was already there, type, cost wise, location wise. Okay, and I will just drag and drop, not from this data source, but from the fields. I will just select the name, type, cost wise, type, location wise, registry number, acquisition date, and I will drag and drop them to the auto report node. So now these fields are also the part of the default behavior. I will just build one more time to synchronize the changes. Once done, then I can just download the Excel add-in sheet for this form, and then I can show you. So once I have built the project and I have opened the Excel add-in once more, so the new fields which I have dragged and dropped into auto report are now showing, but it is missing the mandatory field. So I will also need to drag and drop the mandatory field in order to this to work. Well, until we have not drag and drop anything into the auto report, it will show only the mandatory. But if you have drag and drop something into auto report, so this auto report will override the default behavior and it will skip the mandatory, so which will definitely be needed, otherwise record will not be saved. So I will just drag and drop these mandatory field, and I will also sequence it so that group ID comes first, then resort ID, name and types, and the remaining information will come. So once more I will need to just build the project to synchronize, and will again show the Excel add-in. So next what we have done is basically we have drag and drop all the necessary field into auto report field group. Basically here you can see group ID, resort ID are the mandatory field, and the other optional fields are also we have drag and drop from the fields to auto report field group. This will by default show whenever you open the Excel add-in on this page of resort master data. So this will by default open these fields in that sheet. So I will just show you. And there is one more additional thing which I have done is which I will show you. Let me open. You can see here all the fields are there which we have drag and drop in the auto report field group, including these mandatory fields which are resort group and resort ID. So automatically it has refreshed whatever are there on this page. So automatically those are refreshed. So one more thing which I have added is, like, if you click on the last row, you can just press the new command so that a new row is inserted. Here the resort group column on a new record or new row, it is showing resort group values on the right hand side, you can see. And from here I can select, for example, a VIP a resort group, and then I can give it a number. For example, this is 99, and then from resort type cost wise I can see here base enum, Basically, it has no additional logic, only I have put the logic for this resort group, and that is a custom lookup, which I will just show you. So the resort type cost wise, I will select, for example, super luxury, and resort type location wise, I can put, for example, a hill station, and then registry number is a manual input of registry of the property. Okay, then once you select the date control or acquisition date, here you can see the calendar control. I can put the whatever is the date of acquisition for this property, and then I can put a description like hill station, super luxury resort, and I can give it a number. For example, this is a 3 number. Once I have done it, then I can publish. So the publish is successful. Workbook has been updated, and I can go and refresh on the page, and you can see here the corresponding record has been inserted with all the values which I have selected. So now how to add this lookup functionality? Whenever you click on this resort group cell value, so on the right hand pane you can see the possible values. So there is a method which you need to just put in the entity which we have just created, resort table entity, with the name of lookup group ID. You can put any name, but only the decorator need to be as per the implementation which we have done here. So there is a documentation for the method, and then decorators are as below. Sys O data action, and this is the name of this sys O data action, and then it is also showing that whether it is a static method or instantiated method. So it is not an instantiated method, this is a static method, you can see here, without any instance. And then we need to just put here the table on which we need the lookup and table field, and similarly the type of the field, which is string in this case. So then the method implementation need to be static, means it does not need to be instantiated. Return type need to be string based upon the field type which you have. Here our group ID is string type, so we'll use this string type. And then there is an array of fields which is passed to this lookup method. So basically this decorator will take care about the field on which the lookup is being implemented, specifically this decorator. Okay, so the group ID is the field, and the table on which this lookup is being implemented need to be mentioned here. Okay, so the rest of the implementation, as you can see here, so the group ID field is here instantiated, and then a field map is being also implemented, instantiated, and then the implementation will go like this one, and we'll have a result object which we have also instantiated here, and we have a counter here which need to be started from 1 value, because we'll be populating this result array. So in the result array items collection, and then this counter need to be 1 at first time, and then it is incremented by 1. So second time it will have 2 value, and the remaining is a resort group is the basic table in which we have defined the resort group. So this we have just here declared, and then we have iterated it record by record. Whatever number of record are, so it will iterate each time, and it will insert into this result array or collection, and then it will serialize it, and then it will return the result string, which is a return type of a string. So this will take care how the Excel admin will interpret it in this column. So you need to also implement in the similar way. Okay, so this is a very straightforward. For the base enum, you don't have to worry, because automatically they are taken care by the framework. So on the right hand side, automatically base enums will show the possible values, but the only thing is for the table in which we have a custom values. So this is it for the data entity. We have created a new data entity for our resort management system, specifically for master data for resorts, and we have also implemented a custom lookup on a custom values lookup table, and we have also seen how to by default put the fields which we need on Excel add-ins by dragging and dropping onto the auto report field group. So remaining is straightforward. We have added a new item of data entity, and the wizard is very straightforward, in which we have selected whatever fields we need there, and that's it. I think it is very clear. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. Thank you very much. Take care, and stay tuned for my next video. Thank you.